Hey there, good folks. Patricia here. I want to encourage you and remind you that it is absolutely okay to love what you do in a different way than the status quo. And there's value in that, there's opportunity in that, and it's one of those moments where it's okay to not be, quote, in the norm. What am I talking about? Okay, here's the thing. A lot of people know, if you don't know, I'm a licensed attorney. I do not offer legal advice on this channel, so let's just make sure to say that clearly. But I am a licensed attorney. I keep my license active. I do, which that allows me to pick up cases occasionally, which I do, but I don't actively go seeking out cases or whatever. I do still stay active in the bar, which is the licensing organization for attorneys. So I stay active in some of the bar organizations and keep my brain sharp. And also it requires me to engage in continuing legal education every year in order to keep my license active. So yeah, I gotta pay money and I gotta stay educated. So, and I love being able to do that because at any given time, I may decide that I want to go back to practicing law in a full-time way or more than I do currently. And that's why I keep that license active. And I started out my career practicing law and lobbying. So it was always split. I worked for a teachers association back then where I was a registered lobbyist, which means I was crafting legislation and approaching legislators in the Texas legislature on issues, policy issues and concerns and drafting. And those things, you'll see that a lot, kind of go hand in hand, right? You'll find a lot of lawyers in the legislative world because it does help the way you're trained, the way you think, does help with some aspects of that. But not everybody in that world does that, and it's perfectly okay because it also means lawyers have a higher level of accountability and responsibility because of the license. All right, there we are. And as I moved forward and went out on my own, one of the things that I started doing was more of the policy work, right? So again, my legal background was supportive and helpful to me with my clients, when I went into partnership with a couple other guys. I was the only attorney in the group. So there were benefits to that, allowed us to do some things that might not have otherwise been able to do. I was able to review documents. So there were different things I could do because I maintained my license. And as things continued to progress, and I did less and less of that and started doing more of the executive advising piece, working with executive leaders, working with organizations, and helping people to build the relationships they need to support themselves professionally in their careers and their business. Again, the legal stuff was back here, but always undergirding and supporting. And I've just enjoyed that. And I know whenever I want to, I can dive back into doing legal work in a greater way, if I want to support policy or legislative or even my executive consulting staff. And so, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm not necessarily focused on that. I keep up with lawyers. I'm part of some lawyer groups, and that's how I keep my brain sharp in that way. And then sometimes we get a little help from just everyday, well, not every day, but situations out in the wild, right? Watching things as they develop on a state or a national basis, all kinds of issues. And needless to say, there has been no lack thereof of situations on a national front that absolutely have kept my little legal brain going, what in the world, right? So Sometimes it's just what's happening in the world that will help things, keep things sharp. The most recent one of those is this entire NCAA fiasco with this football player who transferred into a university here in Texas. And it came out that he had a gambling problem. He had a substantial gambling problem that had been in place for years, I believe since he was a freshman at 2 other universities. And here it comes home to roost in this situation right here in good old Texas. So I've been following it. I have a son who's played football his entire life, so I've always kind of kept up with all the things around it, and especially in around college ball. And I'm reading what's going on with this, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this one's going to hit the fan. So I've been keeping close tabs on it, and it literally came to a head yesterday. And I and all my legal brain nerdiness was in hog heaven, because I'm looking and I'm watching the decisions and different things, strategies that are being implemented, and I am knowing behind the scenes what some of that means because of my training. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, wishing I could be a fly on the wall on some of those conversations and not really having someone to talk to about it. So there I am blabbing to my husband. I'm like, oh my God, this happened and this is what that means and all of those things. And here is my point all along, which is, guess what? Whatever your knowledge is, whatever your skill base is, you get to enjoy it. You get to utilize it. You get to support it in whatever way works for you. Bottom line, the world, people around you, people who don't think as broadly as you, dare I say, who aren't as creative as you, might I say, they won't necessarily understand that. Trust you me, I have had my share of people questioning how I decided to move forward with my professional life and career and not doing the obvious of, quote, practicing law. And, besides the Tabitha Brown response of, and that's my business, there's also a very limited view where people don't understand the depth of your skills, the depth of your knowledge, and what that looks like as it continues to undergird everything that you do. Because the reality is, for me, just because I'm not practicing law day in and day out does not mean that the law goes unsupported in my work that I do from day to day. And it is one of the things that I just find so challenging to get people to understand, that I really had to grow in my own way and come to terms with saying, you know what, it doesn't matter. I don't need to make them understand this. It's for me to know and understand, and people to accept it or not. And if they don't, that's their business. And I'm going to continue to move forward in the work that I do, knowing that I have a skill set, I have an experience, I have a background that is so rich and unique to me that will always help my clients moving forward. Always, without a doubt. And that is the same that can be said for so many of you out there, is the knowledge that you bring, the skills that you bring to a situation, people can never understand. And it's okay. Long as you do and you remain true to what it is your goals, your purpose is. Because the reality also is what we start off wanting to do is not often what we end up. That is not a quote normal pathway. Most people don't stay doing what they're doing for years and years and years. Now, again, professional skill level folks a lot of times do because of the nature of it, right? But even then, they change firms or they change direction or they go do something different to help support it or sustain it. Like, you are not the same person when you start your career as you are now, and you will not be the same person in 5 or 10 years. There are things that you may want to add to what you do. There are things that you want to help you grow as a person and as a professional, or that you just simply want to move beyond. And guess what? All of that is absolutely okay. And you don't need my validation for it. You just have to know it for yourself. But also to recognize that when you don't get that validation externally, it's still okay. It is quite all right for you not to do things in the way that other people expect you to. Because their lack of understanding about you and where you are and who you are and what you're doing is really none of your business. Now, I'm hoping that somebody picks up on that now, because it took me quite some time to come to terms with that. I struggled greatly with that. But when I tell you how empowering that is when you come to that realization, oh, what do they say, chef's kiss? Yes. It is so important for you to stay true to yourself, to recognize the skills that you have, to not hide them, to not be ashamed of them because you're not exhibiting or you're not moving forward in a way that other people expect you to. I've had those conversations, or pseudo conversations, I should say, when someone says, family members, like, oh, but you're such an excellent, an attorney. I don't understand why you're not doing that. And it's much more, quote, stable and all this. And I'm like, who would have expected the world we live in currently to look like it is? There's nothing stable about our current marketplace. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, no one could have necessarily seen this coming to fruition the way it does. But if you say, oh, I'm only going to stay in this because it's, quote, stable, you're going to get your feelings hurt when the first little thing happens to rock the boat. So you can't build your career, your goals, your dreams on someone else's definition of what is acceptable or what is stable or what is, quote, the right thing to do. Should you seek counsel when you're making shifts and changes? Absolutely. But it's just that. It's counsel. It's not the gospel. Even those who give us counsel can be a little wrong or a little biased or uncertain. But they can also be honest with you about, hey, this is your dream. These are your goals. Here's what I can offer you to help support you, to help you along your way. Or, it's like, you know what? I don't know that I can support you in moving along with this. Guess what? They get to say and do those things, and you get to move on anyways. I don't know. This conversation has shifted from one of a little bit about professional growth and development to absolutely one about empowerment and moving in empowering ways that support you long term, not other people. Because that's another thing. People are going to be really scared. A lot of times people are scared because they don't understand. And because they don't understand, they're like, well, no, you shouldn't do that because I don't get it. So you should just stay doing what you're doing. That doesn't work either. So I want to encourage you to think about, what are those skills you've been hiding? What are those experiences that have supported you all along this way, that you've been pushing back and be like, well, no, I can't do that because so-and-so doesn't think that that's going to work. No, I don't care if you are a brand new person to the workforce, fresh out of college, or whether you've been in the workforce 20 or 30 years. We all have skills and experiences that we have probably brushed aside a little bit and that can support us in our next venture and our next moment. And I'm encouraging you today to go take some time to figure out what those things are and how you can incorporate them into your next level goals, your next level dreams, and do it today. One step, one thing. I'd love to hear your comments down below. Let me hear from you about what you're going to do, what you're thinking, how this lands with you. And as always, if you need some guidance and helping to make that come to fruition, hello, Strategy Power Hours are always there, and or whatever services that you might need. Hit me up in the comments, hit me up in my social media DMs, and I'm happy to help you figure out what the next thing might be for you, even if it's not with me, right? Because I am completely committed to making sure that people move in more empowered ways throughout their life. And that is my legacy, to give back to folks in the world today. That's what this is all about. All right. So if you are enjoying this content, please hit the thumbs up button, hit subscribe so that you can come back to this channel, and be sure to share it out. Okay. Meanwhile, have a fantastic, empowering day, and we will catch you in the next video.